So today's design is the off-shoulder top. We're doing a short sleeve version today, but if you wanted to do a long sleeve version, the steps are exactly the same, but this piece would just be longer, obviously. So we have the two sleeves, we have the tie, we have the one single front piece, we have the half front piece in our lining fabric, which is stretch mesh for me personally. I like it because it's so thin. And then we have our single back piece as well. I'll get to these in just a moment, but we're going to start with the tie. I'm going to fold it in half, clip along the edge, and at the same time we're going to do the sleeves. So we're going to fold them in half, clip along the side seam. If it was longer, it would just be like all the way down here. Now we're going to sew both of these along these edges, like this. Now I use my overlocker as standard. If you don't have an overlocker, that's completely fine. Just use a stretch stitch on your sewing machine. Zigzag stitch is the most common. So I'll put these aside for a moment. Now with your tie, you're going to need a seam ripper, and you want to rip about 2 to 3 centimeters of a hole in the middle. Now through this hole, we're going to take our loop turner, go in, grab the end, and pull it through. If you don't have a loop turner, that's completely fine. You just might need your hole to be a little bit bigger so you can use your fingers. Now we are going to do a straight stitch to close up this hole here. Now we can move on to the front. So the first thing I want to do is to fold it in half, place a clip on these edges here, just marking the center point. I'm gonna open it up, take my ruler just to show me the center point here, and I'm going to draw a line. There we go. I'm gonna do the same step for the back piece. There we go. Now I will show you this step at the sewing machine. We're just going to put some elastic in here. But before we do that, we're going to take our front piece, right side facing down. We're going to take our lining piece. We're going to clip it in place. I'm just going to measure the center point, which is where I've put the clip. I've done this so many times, I've sort of gotten used to what the middle looks like. Now I'm going to do a straight stitch along this center section here, and that's going to create 2 pockets for your padding. Now if you don't want padding, this step is technically optional. That's all done. Now I'm going to show you the next step at the sewing machine. So for this step, we want to sew elastic onto the center line that we marked on our front and back pieces with a wide zigzag stitch. So starting from the edge, I'm going to take my 6mm braided elastic. If you can't get this exact one, as long as you get something similar, that will be fine. So we're going to start from the edge, and I'm going to sew this elastic on all the way along where this line is, but you want to catch your lining piece as well because you don't want it moving around inside the top. And when we sew this, we want to stretch this braided elastic, not to its full capacity. We don't want it to be that tight. Maybe to say about like 30% of its capacity-ish. And to me, it just makes the top feel more secure when you're wearing it. So that is all done. I'm going to do the same step, but for the back piece. But obviously there's no lining for the back piece, so you just want to sew it along that line we made. So that side is done as well. Now, while I'm at my sewing machine, I'm just going to hem the sleeves as well. So I'm going to turn them the right way around, fold them in about 1.5 centimeters and do a small zigzag stitch all the way around for all 4 edges. There we go. So we're going to do this step for the remaining 3 hems. So I finished my 2 sleeves and my front and my back piece with the elastic. So we're going to take our front piece, place it right side facing up, take our back piece, right side facing down, making sure the elastics are in the same place. And I'm going to pin the sides, starting from the middle so that we can line up these pieces of elastic. Now we're going to sew both of these side seams here. So that's what it will look like. Now we're going to fold it in half, but right side's facing out, like this. So we want the elastic at the top, and we want the inside facing out, and we know this is the inside of the top because this is where we've stitched the lining in place. And we also want the zigzag stitch of the elastic facing out. Now this next step I'll show you at my sewing machine. Okay, so we have the top, we have the zigzag stitch facing out, we have the inside of the top facing out as well, and the way we know this is just because of this stitch here for the lining. Now we're going to start at one of the underarms, and we're going to place a wide zigzag stitch all the way around, securing the elastic in place. So we'll place it under our foot with the current zigzag stitch facing up. Now you will need to use your left hand to pull through the under layer because we don't want to accidentally have it sticking out, and then that's going to create some lumps and bumps with the fabric. We want to make sure we pull it in so we've got one straight piece of fabric to sew along. So that's finished. So on the inside you'll see 2 layers of a wide zigzag, but on the outside you're just going to see this one neat layer of zigzag stitching. Now the next step is to hem the bottom, but we want to grab the bottom pieces, fold them up 1.5 centimeters, and then do a zigzag stitch all the way around. Now, I don't have a cover stitch machine, which is one of those machines that makes really nice hems, but what I do like to do is overlock the bottom edge, and that way it's much easier to hem. If you don't have an overlocker for this step, you can do a zigzag stitch all the way around, trim off the edge, and then do the hem. So I've overlocked the bottom, and it just makes this step so much easier. So we're going to fold it up 1.5 centimeters, the same way we do any other of our hems, and do a small zigzag stitch all the way around. So that hem is finished, and I'm going to turn it the right way around. So that's the back, and we have the front. Now the last step is to add the sleeves. So I have my 2 sleeves. So it might be hard to see on camera, but this is the top as it's slightly larger, that's the bottom. You might also have long sleeves. So we're going to take the top right way facing out. So we have the finished hem here and the single zigzag stitch. We're going to fold it in half so we can access this side seam. We're going to take one of our sleeves and line up the seam of the sleeve to the side seam of the top. Clip it in place. Now we're going to do a straight stitch along here. The straight stitch will be 3 to 4 centimeters long, and you want to go back and forth quite a few times at the beginning and the end because this sleeve here needs to take a lot of tension. So we need to make sure it's really strong. So there we go. Now we'll do the same for the other side. And you're finished. Now this is the part where you'll put in padding. Technically an optional step, but I do feel it really adds to the top, especially since the fabric is so stretchy. It just creates a little bit of extra coverage. So I'm going to turn the top the wrong way around, with the front of the top facing up, so we have our center seam here. And I'm going to cut a small hole in the underarm section, about 3 to 4 centimeters long, but make sure you cut through only one layer of fabric. You don't want to cut through the lining or the front piece. Now I'm going to roll up my padding, place it inside, and pop it into shape. Same with the other side. And you're completely finished.